Awesome. Okay, so my name is James Harwood, Business Manager, Integrated Solutions at Ingram Micro. We have a unique partnership, obviously, with Microsoft, and due to the fact that COVID has come into our beautiful country from various sources, we have had to, as businesses, react dramatically, rapidly, in a very fast form, and with Microsoft and various other parties in the ecosystem, there has been a massive reaction during the course of the last 2 to 3 months. So I'm going to hand over to Ben Brown, who is the Surface Channel Partner Manager for New Zealand, and he's going to run through some interesting information of what has occurred during this very interesting time.
Cool, thank you very much, James. Hey, so good morning, everybody. As James said, my name is Ben Brown. I look after the Surface commercial channel for New Zealand. So every time either a Surface PC or tablet gets sold into a commercial customer, or the Surface Hub, which we'll talk a little bit about today, which is our shared room experience for Surface and Microsoft Teams. Today, I'm going to be focused on, pardon me, Siri is popping up. I think I've lost you guys.
No, we're here. We can see you.
You're still there? Excellent. Sorry.
Yep, can see you fine.
Is that working? Excellent. Sorry, my internet connection, I think, just dropped out there for a second. So we're going to be talking about the range of Microsoft Teams room systems and really about Teams as a shared space platform. So to start with, I did want to throw a nod. I am the Surface guy for Microsoft New Zealand. So we released some new products last week. They're awesome products. If you'd like to learn more about either the Surface Go 2, the Book 3, or the Surface Dock 2, which are our sort of core lineup of products, feel free to reach out to me at any point. Happy to take you through them, happy to do demos, etc. The other thing I wanted to touch on really quickly was the Surface audio story. And I think this is really core to sort of the way we're working at the moment. All of us are working from home, working remotely, bouncing between video conference calls, whether it's a Zoom call, a Teams call, or a Google Hangout. All of us are reliant on these audio products to help us deliver a really high quality meeting experience, right? At the end of the day, you can have the best software platform in the world, but if you don't have the devices or audio equipment to wrap around that platform, you're going to have a terrible end user experience. So I did want to just highlight that Surface and Microsoft together are making massive investments in this space, because we see this methodology of working moving forward being a core part of our lives, right? The idea that you will ever not go back to work and not have video conferencing has sort of faded away over the last couple of weeks. Now, I am going to talk mainly about Teams devices for shared spaces today. I'm going to do this really quickly so we have a bit of time for questions. If you do have any questions, feel free to drop them into the chat window as well. I'm sure James will be happy to ping back any answers that we can provide over that as well. But quickly, before we dive into the actual devices, let's take a look at Teams as the platform. So I joined Microsoft about 4 years ago, June 2016. And when I joined Microsoft, we had just started to talk about, rolling from Skype into Microsoft Teams, which came a bit later that year. It grew pretty slowly to start. And really, July 11, 2019 was the first point where we said, hey, Microsoft Teams has really become this platform that we're going all in on, right? We've overtaken Slack and daily active users. And again, I want to reinforce daily active users is a person using the Microsoft Teams platform to perform some significant task, whether that's reading or writing an instant message to another team member in their organization, joining a virtual meeting, or potentially posting in one of the channels. This isn't just people that have the application installed on their devices. This is people actively using the application to perform their jobs or socialize with their colleagues. So 13 million people, daily active users, July 11, 2019. We saw some really great growth, and we still continue to see really great growth, right? So 13 million to 20 plus million in just a couple of months. Again, another 10, 15 millions in another couple of months up to March 11. And this is where we really started to see the impact of COVID and people starting to work from home as the default mode of working, right? So 32 million users on March 11, 2020. 44 on March 18, 2020. So this is exponential growth for this platform, right? This platform is bursting at the seams. Millions of people are starting to work from home, and we're seeing exponential growth all the way up to 75 million people at April 30 this year, right? So daily active users, we almost doubled our numbers in just over a month. Now, I really like the way that Satya Nadella pitches this, our CEO. Essentially what we've seen is we've seen 2 years of digital transformation in less than 2 months. 2 years of digital transformation from those customers that, you know, all of us have gone out, sat with, spoken with for the last couple of years saying, hey, you need to get ready for work for home. You need to enable mobility for your staff. You need to give your people new ways of working. And we've all heard the same feedback of we don't have the time, we don't have the budget, we don't have the resources, we don't have the manpower to make that happen. What we've seen over the last 2 months is a lot of that has faded away when the need has been driven by external forces. We've seen organizations that have gone from no ability to deliver remote video meetings through to having their entire organization of 10,000 plus people working remotely digitally through platforms like Microsoft Teams. So this is where we really start to see the value proposition of Microsoft Teams and that ability to work and collaborate remotely together beyond just meetings, but also into channels and instant messaging and telephony come into the forefront. 2 years of digital transformation in 2 months, an amazing thing to see in New Zealand. I know each and every one of us will have an example of a customer that has gone above and beyond and delivered that outcome for their end users. The other way to think about this is, you know, we're really going to have to fundamentally rethink the way that we work as an or every organization works. Over the last few years, we've pitched more and more around, you know, more and more time is being spent collaborating. You're likely in 2 times as many teams as you were 5 years ago. And now that's not just to say you're in more direct line HR restricted teams. We're talking about the way that organizations have become more collaborative and they've become flatter and they're more horizontal. You're working with lots of different stakeholders across lots of different HR units or business units to perform virtual teams and execute on projects or tasks or strategy. We're also seeing a massive rise in remote working. Now, 72% of employees will be remotely working by 2020. That's probably gone through the roof. These statistics are a few months old and they're pre-COVID. So we're expecting that statistic to grow even more significantly. I do think personally, we'll still see a shift of some people back to the office, but I think what we've seen is we've seen this mentality that you have to be in the office every day to do your job being broken down by the COVID scenario. Now people will know they have the flexibility to work from home or office as long as their organization allows it. We're seeing more and more meetings being run remote. We're seeing more and more webinars being run remote. So this is a great example of, you know, a few months ago, this would have been an uncomfortable thing. Not many people were running multi-attendee webinars. Now this is the day in, day out default for most of us. And what we're going to see off the back of this is users being incredibly familiar with the platforms like Zoom, Teams, Google Hangouts, having used them to work from home for the last couple of months, and then coming back into the workforce, coming back into the office and expecting that same simple, easy, understood experience, not only on their desktop PC or laptop, but also across their iPhone and more importantly, or Android, and more importantly, the meeting rooms within their organizational space. So you've got these users that have spent the last couple of months becoming intimately familiar with the video conferencing platforms that their organization use. They're going to come back into the office and they're going to expect they can walk into a meeting room and have that same great meeting experience with the technology in that meeting room, not have the meeting room experience that most of our customers are familiar with, right? Which is they take in their laptop, they plug in 15 cords, they figure out they can't get the speakers going, they can't get the mics going, they're trying to apologize to the people on the other end of the line saying, hey, we'll just be a few minutes, every meeting starting 10 minutes late because they don't have that seamless one-touch join, familiar, consistent experience. So I'm going to skip through these slides. I think we all understand Microsoft Teams. If you don't have a good grip on the Microsoft Teams platform, there's a lot of content online. There's a lot of free training offered by Microsoft, and I'm happy to send through some of that for you. Essentially, it is a collaboration platform. It enables you to do a whole bunch of things across instant messaging, posting in Teams, using telephony if you have the right licensing, as well as the more traditional AV UC meeting experiences. The key thing I want to call out about Teams is that it's built to be a consistent experience everywhere. So whether you're opening it up on your iPhone, or if you're using it on your Surface laptop, or if you're walking into a meeting room and using a Microsoft Teams room device, the meeting room experience, the chat experience, the video conferencing experience should all be familiar to you. If you've done it on your iPhone, you should be able to walk into a meeting room and use that meeting room like it's second nature to you. So again, this consistency of experience, this ability for a user to walk in and immediately know what they need to do to join that meeting, to have a good meeting experience is incredibly important. And that's why we've built consistency across all of our platform. Now, as I said before, even if you have the best software platform in the world, it all falls to pieces if you don't have the right devices at the end user layer, right? You can have the best piece of software in the world, but if you don't have a great video conferencing setup with a great mic, great speakers, and great video, you're going to have a terrible meeting room experience. And I think we've all experienced this at some point in our lives. Teams as a platform works across a whole number of devices. And we really think of them as personal devices. So whether it's your PC and mobile, even your Surface headphones or an IP phone that sits on an executive desk, a personal device, right through to shared spaces devices like collaboration bars, team rooms, and Surface Hub. Now, most of you will be familiar with the Teams rooms. They've been in market for a couple of years now and are a really great platform for Microsoft Teams in those shared spaces. Today, I'm going to spend a little bit longer talking about the collaboration bars, which are a new concept coming to market, and the Surface Hub, which is my pride and joy. I think the best representation of how Teams should work on a modern piece of shared space hardware. Just get through these. Now, when you're talking to your customers about shared space hardware, we're all familiar with the tried and true traditional values of what you need to be discussing with them. You know, how much budget do you have as a customer? How many rooms do you need to configure? What's the size of those rooms, et cetera, et cetera. One of the things that I want to draw your attention to, and I think this is a really key thing that a lot of New Zealand resellers miss out on, is the ability to shape a customer's technology decisions, not by the budget, not by the stack they already have, but by simple things like what furniture do you have in that room, right? If you have a room with a table flush mounted against a wall and you're going to have to hang the screen over that, it's probably not the right space to have a collaboration device like a Surface Hub, which is built in nature to be walked up to, drawn on, people standing around, squiggling on, right? You're probably better to have a traditional AV UC experience. So one of my pushes in market over the last couple of months has been to talk to our resellers about, you know, doing the real basic conversations of what furniture do you have in each of these rooms? Do you have flush mounted tables? Do you have transparent glass on the walls? Do you have whiteboards in these rooms already, et cetera, et cetera? You need to be thinking at a really basic level, how do we build our technology stack on top of the furniture and space stack that our customers have? Beyond that, there's a whole bunch of other requirements about IT integration, device management, what OS and security you have to have. But without getting those really fundamental room, space, and furniture requirements down pat and understanding how those map against your solutions, you're not going to end up with an ideal outcome. The other thing I would encourage you to think about is, I'll skip back a slide. How are these meeting rooms being used? Are they being used as formal video UC AC experiences where you all sit down, 10 people around a table, talk to a camera to a remote team somewhere else? Or are they being used as collaboration spaces? Are they being used as informal agile workshop spaces where people can pop in, do a quick meeting, draw up some notes, dial in a remote member if they need to, and then jump back out? You need to be thinking about, you know, how are these people working in the room, as well as what does that room look like? Now, as I said, there are three core types of Microsoft Teams shared devices. There's our Microsoft Teams rooms, which are our purpose-built calling and meeting solution, really focused on that traditional AV UC experience, that experience where you have 10 people sitting around a table, talking to a remote team somewhere else in the world, thinking, how do we give you a really great platform that takes away all the complexity of delivering that experience and gives you that Teams consistency in that room, that one-touch join experience, that familiarity of the platform that people have been using for the last 2 months. These platforms, they come with traditionally a tabletop NUC, which you see here. That's your touch pane, that's your interface, that's the platform that's actually running this Teams software. You can then augment that with external video, external mics, external speakers to your heart's extent. Really, this is the core that lets you add on accessories around it to build out that fully functional AV UC experience. Next, thinking sort of in the lower cost point, we have an all-in-one system, which is the collaboration bars. Think of these as an ability to drop a speaker, microphone, camera, and a Teams room system, all at a lower cost point into small meeting rooms. Again, this is thinking very much around that traditional AV UC meet and greet experience, not around collaboration or co-working, but it gives you a great way to very quickly take a customer that has not traditionally had AV UC in their meeting rooms and drop one on drop a collaboration bar plus a display, whether it's a TV or a display that's already there, into a meeting space and very quickly get that Teams room-like experience. Now, there will be small UC changes, and this is part of what you need to understand, is there will be small user experience changes that come with dropping this lower cost solution. As an example, I believe the Poly collaboration bar comes with a touchscreen panel, but some of the other ones come with an actual remote, so more of a traditional remote to engage with the user interface. And that can sort of break down that familiarity and that one-touch join experience. Now, these are still great solutions. They come in at a great price point and they enable very rapid deployment. So again, thinking about how you're going to map these solutions out. And then finally, we have the Microsoft Surface Hub 2S, which is this piece of kit on the right-hand side. The Microsoft Surface Hub 2S is really the best of a Teams room system with the display, speakers, and cameras all built in on a rolling cart. But it also enables so much more than that because it's also a collaboration platform. It's a fully functional digital whiteboard, as well as enabling you to run UWP or Universal Windows Platform applications. And soon, some additional application compatibility will be coming that will enable things like web apps to be installed on the device. So really thinking about, how do we give our users a collaboration experience, a place where users can come together and work on a shared device, whether it's editing a PowerPoint, whiteboarding ideas, or soon installing other line of business applications through web app compatibility. Quick reference point, as I said, we have a bunch of Microsoft Teams Rooms devices. They are built by our partners. We do not have a first-party version of these at the moment. They're all good. They all bring that consistent platform. Each is going to have its own different value prop. Spend time with each of the vendors, understand their value props, and understand which one maps right into your solutions. As an example, I have used the Lenovo. We have one of them in our office. It's a great piece of kit. I have used the Logitech Tap, great piece of kit. They all work. They're all great, consistent experiences. Collaboration bars, these are the newer kids on the block. At the moment, we're looking at 2 vendors coming into market. So we have the Polycom and the Yealink. As I mentioned, you're going to see different functionality with these, but really thinking about that all-in-one device, you can drop in at a low cost or lower cost point to enable rapid deployment of these solutions. And then finally, the Surface Hub, which is our pride and joy, our first party device, really focused on that mobility, that collaboration, the ability to not only have your AV UC experience, but also to enable things like digital whiteboarding, working on line of business applications together, and having still the best in market Teams experience. Now, a couple of exciting things that are coming, and apologies that I'm rushing. This is quite a lot of content to get through in 25 minutes. You will see us start to talk about the theory of the coordinated join. So I've talked about that traditional ACUV experience where you have 10 people sitting around a meeting room table. We know in those experiences you want a large front of room device. You want an 85-inch plus screen at the front of room to enable really good quality content for the participants in the room. But we know traditionally those 85-inch plus display front of room systems in tandem with a Teams room system example, they haven't allowed you to do the collaboration that a lot of meeting participants want to do as well. So what we're talking about now is we're talking about the ability for a large meeting room to have both a traditional AV UC experience as well as a collaboration platform like a Surface Hub in the room to enable really the best in class of both of these worlds, right? You can have your large format front of room AV experience, but off to the side, you can have a fully ready digital collaboration platform. The key part about this is how do we make these platforms light up together? How do we make them work together so you have that seamless, consistent experience? Well, we do things like coordinated join, which allow you to walk into the meeting room and start the meeting from either the Teams room device, which you see down here, the sort of panel on the table, or the Surface Hub. By doing so, you'll have your video and content produced up on the 85-inch at the front of room device, and you'll enable collaboration live in that meeting on the device to the side. So again, thinking how do we bring these 2 platforms together to work hand in hand and deliver the best experience? We're anticipating that this will go live sometime calendar year this year. Now, I did quickly want to touch on, and I'll make sure you will get a copy of these slides after as well. How do we think about mapping out these solutions? So how does a Microsoft salesperson currently go into a customer and think about mapping out our Teams Room solutions or Teams Rooms products into their spaces? The first thing we do, and this is what I talked about before, we think about the primary meeting behaviors in these spaces. So we'll talk to a customer and we'll say, you have a meeting room. What do you do in there? Do you have that traditional AV UC experience? Or do you have that meet and co-create, that less formal, the co-creation, inking and whiteboarding top priority, where you want to be able to use your line of business applications, where you want to have multiple staff working together on a shared device? How is this space going to be used, not only today, but also in 6, 12, 18 months? Because you need to be thinking about that roadmap of transformation. And what we find is that those customers that are already on that journey of digital transformation, they're really making a shift from the meet and present to meet and co-create. Now, we know there will always be a space for meet and present. We know there'll always be traditional boardrooms. There'll always be traditional AV and UC experiences. But what we typically find is those that are more digitally agile will be moving from the meet and present to meet and co-create, because that's how their staff want to work. As I said before, more and more people are working in more and more teams, and more often you're having to collaborate with other people. So what people want to do is they want to be able to bounce into a meeting room, and they want to be able to start doing things like lack of formal inking or co-creation together. They don't want that traditional meet and present. Next, you need to think about what kind of room is it, right? So we have understood what the use case of this room is. Now, is this a large executive office? Or is this a small conference room, or is this an extra large meeting space? Again, thinking about how do we turn this into a matrix where we can map out solutions against these spaces. You can put a capacity against them, and you can put room dimensions against them. We do this really for 2 reasons. One is that when you understand how a number of people is being used in that room and the radius or the size of that room, you can start to map out AV, UC accessories that go into that space as well. So as an example, in a room with a 2.3 meter radius, you're not going to need roof speakers or drop mics. Whereas once you start to get into these extra large meeting spaces of 8.5 meters plus, that's where you need to start thinking about those extra solutions to enable lots of people in the room. And then finally, you take our product capabilities and you map that out against these spaces. What does that look like? Well, it looks a bit like this, where you have the large office and executive suites down here, all the way up to an extra large meeting space. And you have a bunch of solutions across those based on whether they are meet and present or meet and co-create spaces. Now, this is a starting point you can take into any customer to have an informed, articulate conversation around their spaces. This is not by any means the end state. This is just a guidance, a reference point for you to use with your customers to inform the discussion. You may find that, hey, they have an extra large meeting space, but they don't want 2 cameras and drops, mics and speaker tiles. They just want a simple solution down one end of the room. Use this as a reference point. It gives you agility to go into a customer and very quickly take a customer conversation from, we have 100 meeting rooms that we don't know what we need to do with, through to, okay, you have 5 different meeting room types. Each of those meeting room types is in these space requirements, therefore these solutions map against them. Again, it's about bringing agility to your sales cycle and to your customers' demands. Finally, a couple of example space configurations, and I will rip through these very quickly because we only have a couple minutes left. Thinking about, what does the modern office look like? For an executive, it'll often look like a large office space with an ability to have seated meetings as well as their own personal computer. We're finding more and more that executives are wanting a meeting rooms experience device inside their own office. They don't want to have to go to a dedicated meeting space to have that experience. They want to have their daily use PC in their office, as well as something like a Surface Hub or a collaboration bar in their office ready to go so they can jump into meetings. There's a bunch of focus room content. I like this slide specifically because it helps highlight that idea of furniture. As an example, this middle piece here shows you, have you considered what kind of furniture is going to enable a great UC-AV experience by having all of your participants facing the camera and the display, rather than having someone's back or side to that camera and display. There's also a great reference here of exactly what not to do with a Microsoft Surface Hub, which is to flush mount a table underneath it, because that would stop someone from walking up to it and inking on it. You'd have to awkwardly lean over the table, hold your pen out to the side and try and scribble on it. Whereas over here, you see a great example of, hey, there's lots of space in front. You could very well have a Surface Hub in either of these diagrams. There's ability to move around it. There's ability to congregate it around it. We're also seeing more and more in modern offices open collaboration spaces. So, how do you start bringing these platforms into communal areas like kitchens, common areas, hangout spaces? Well, you start to use technology. So pieces like the Surface Hub 2S have beamforming microphones that help build a software egg around them to cut out noise outside of the environment. And you start to bring in solutions that have mobility like the roam card, so enabling you to move it from one space to another. This is really what we're starting to see in high-end American offices, if I'm fully transparent about it. We see a lot of this desire to move to more communal spaces, but have solutions that can roam and work in those spaces. I haven't seen this hit the New Zealand market yet, but we are starting to have customers, especially our larger enterprise customers, ask about that similar transition. I won't bother going through all of these. I will make sure you get a copy. Again, really just thinking through what are the spaces, how do you map out your solutions against them? And with that, I will pause and I will double check if there are any questions.
Brian asked about whether the presentation will be available. So I think that the answer is yes.
Yes, absolutely.
And my other question was, is there a sort of special certification that partners need to sell the Surface products, you know, training and other things?
It's a great question. So I'll answer it in two parts. So one is the Surface channel. So the ability to sell a Surface Hub 2S as an example. It is a restricted channel. We're actively looking for the partners that can help us grow that channel and grow the business. So if you're interested, feel free to reach out to Mr. Harwood, who's on the call as well. Okay. For your Teams room devices, I don't believe there's a certification to sell the hardware. What I would encourage partners and other organizations in the call to do is go read up about the Teams certifications. Teams is a massive platform. It has a whole bunch of content behind it. So go work on the Microsoft certifications for Teams, and we can help you map those out against your organization and figure out what requirements you need to meet. But incredibly important for you as you have these conversations to not only understand, you know, devices for shared spaces and meeting rooms, but to also understand the back-end platform that lights those devices up. So that would be my encouragement. I don't think there's a specific shared spaces Teams certification, but I know there's a bunch of Microsoft Teams certifications.
Okay, thank you, Ben, and thank you, James. I'm going to have to wrap it up there because we've got an IBM 1 session starting in a few minutes, and
no worries.
We will get the information out to the attendees and go from there. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Appreciate the opportunity. Thank you, Sean.
Thanks, James. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.